He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. Yeah. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s.
Well, you know,
I made incredible. I made the hooks. I made the melodies.
Yeah.
I made the shit, dog. I'm the man.
Max B and Jim Jones used to move like real family, locked in tight. But the second Jim tossed that bond like it meant nothing, everything changed. That's when Max stopped being the hit-making genius in Jim's corner and turned into the one problem he never saw coming. Straight up a walking nightmare with a voice the whole coast respected. People were whispering about all kinds of wild moves, from Max supposedly taking Jim's girl to damaging his ride and sparking tension all over Harlem just to make a point. Max wasn't backing down for nobody. This story runs deep, so let's break it all down. Charlie Wingate came up in Harlem, New York, right in the center of that historic uptown grind. His life started in the Abraham Lincoln houses, a place where survival teaches you fast and the concrete never goes easy on anyone. Max grew up surrounded by real struggle. His mother was battling addiction and dealing with prison time, so his grandmother stepped in and became the rock holding his world together. Even with her love, the street stayed close, whispering in his ear, long before he ever crafted those hooks that had the whole East Coast humming. Young Charlie found his first taste of music in the boys' choir of Harlem, and that's where the blueprint for the Max B sound was born. That smooth, lazy melody, that sing-song bounce, that wavy flavor, those roots started right there. But even with all that talent blooming, the reality around him never got quiet. By the time he hit 18, Max was already sliding down a path that would change everything. Back in 1997, Max caught a robbery case and ended up doing about 8 years behind bars. But that time didn't crush him. It sharpened him up in a whole new way. When he walked out in 2005, he wasn't the same kid who went in. He came back with a fresh identity, a colder mindset, and that confident walk you only earn from surviving real-life pressure. That's when the world got introduced to Max Bigavell, his own blend of the giants he admired. He pieced that name together from Biggie Smalls, Machiavelli, Tupac, and Jigga, aiming to be the perfect mix of hypnotic flow, street wisdom, and unshakable confidence. Max believed he had the smoothness, the emotion, and the hustle all in one package, and he carried himself like it every time he touched a track. When Max stepped back into Harlem, the streets were lit with energy. The Diplomats were holding the whole borough down, with Cameron and Jim Jones running the scene like bosses. Max linked up with Cam again, and that connection led straight to Jim, who eventually brought Max into his label, Bird Gang. Before long, Max started cooking music with Harlem legend Dame Grease, and the chemistry was wild from the very first session.
Just enough to get my room so I could ram his shit up, ram it up his ass. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the...
In 2006, Max dropped his debut mixtape $1 Million Baby, and the streets reacted instantly. It hit like a shockwave. His voice, his style, his raw energy had people glued from the jump. Bird Gang had another rising artist, Stack Bundles, and with both him and Max in the lineup, Jim Jones was sitting on something powerful. Max became the hidden weapon, crafting hooks and verses that took Jim's records to a whole new level. Tracks like Baby Girl became must-play joints, and anytime Max showed up, the whole vibe went up instantly. Even with all the music heat he was dropping, Max couldn't stay fully clear of the streets, and in September 2006, everything flipped on its head. Word slid back to him through his ex, Gina Conway, about a guy named Alan J. Plowden, a flashy dude moving around like money couldn't slow him down. He was known for running a mortgage and mail fraud hustle, always flexing with cash and cruising in expensive rides. Gina broke down all the details, and according to what she later said, jealousy mixed with ambition pushed things into dangerous territory. She claimed Max told her straight up that they could run a move on Plowden, and everyone involved would come out shining. What exactly happened after that is still argued to this day, but the ending is solid and tragic. Max wasn't at the scene, but prosecutors painted him as the one who set everything in motion. Gina, who was dealing with her own issues, including getting involved in both hustling and stripping, got on the stand and testified that Max sent her and his stepbrother, Kelvin Sims Leardam, to rob Plowden at a Holiday Inn in New Jersey. The plan sounded simple on paper: slide in while Plowden was out clubbing and grab whatever cash they could find. But nothing about the operation went smooth. Gina and Sims reportedly spent hours getting lost, missing exits, and wasting precious time. When they finally made it to the hotel room,
Jim Jones, compare the names. Look, Max Bigavell, Jim Jones. That's don't even add up. That's not weight. That's not on my level, man.
Plowden was already back inside, knocked out next to another woman. Then another man, David Taylor, walked in unexpectedly. He wasn't even supposed to be part of the situation. Sims panicked, lost control, and shot Taylor in the face execution style, turning what was supposed to be a robbery into a full-blown homicide. Gina Conway was the first piece to crumble, and once she got grabbed up, everything unraveled fast. She handed over a 169-page statement and didn't hold anything back. She put Max's name front and center as the one who sparked the whole plan. She claimed Max promised her everything: money, loyalty, a future if she played her part. But when her freedom was on the line, she flipped instantly. When the feds came for Max, they didn't play gentle. They came heavy and hit him with charges that could bury a person for life, including felony murder. His bail got set at a massive $2 million, leaving Max sitting in that freezing cell while the world outside kept spinning without him. And out there, Jim Jones, the same guy who signed Max and built a whole wave with him, was suddenly everywhere. Jim dropped We Fly High, also known as Ballin', and the song exploded. Overnight, it turned into a nationwide anthem, the biggest record Jim ever touched. Max later said he wrote that track, claiming he ghost-wrote it along with most of Jim's major hits. While Jim was stacking fame, money, and interviews, Max was locked down, fighting just to hold on to his name and stay relevant. After 10 long months, the judge finally dropped his bail to $90,000, and that's when Jim stepped back into the picture, but not the way a real friend would. Instead of lifting Max up out of loyalty, reports said Jim used the bail like a bargaining chip, something he could hold over Max's head rather than a lifeline he offered from the heart. Jim agreed to help Max get out, but only under one condition. Max had to sign over his whole publishing and lock himself into a 6-album deal under Jim's control. Max was stuck in a cell, desperate and boxed in.
Your name is Max B, aka Max Bigavell. We know Bigavell stands for Big Jig and Pac, right? But where did the name...
Big Jig and Machiavelli, baby.
Yeah.
Big Jig and Machiavelli.
With barely any choices on the table, he signed the papers. Jim walked away with all the publishing tied to that wavy sound, and Max got temporary freedom, but at the cost of his future. When Max B stepped out of jail in July 2007, he wasn't the same man who walked in. He came out colder, sharper, and carrying a heavy load of resentment. He was broke, he felt betrayed, and now he was tied to a contract that handed his creative legacy to someone who seemed to be shining the most during his darkest days: Jim Jones, the same man he had once treated like real family. Max had to sit in that cell for months, watching Jim's influence spread across the streets, while mixtapes and street DVDs kept Max's name alive like urban mythology. People everywhere were shouting "Wavy," giving Max credit even when he wasn't there to enjoy it. And the louder the street said his name, the clearer it became. If Jim wasn't going to put him on the right way, Max was done staying quiet. He was ready to push back. And he had reasons, serious ones. Max believed he wasn't just pushed to the side politically. He felt he had been straight up robbed financially. Jim now owned all of Max's publishing. Every hook he crafted, every melodic ad-lib, every catchy line that had people vibing. The checks went into Jim's pocket, not Max's. And this wasn't only about business. The friendship was fractured, the loyalty felt broken, and Max B stepped back into the world with a mindset locked on payback. Max stepped away from Bird Gang with a heart frozen from betrayal and a mission burning in his mind. If Jim Jones wasn't going to give him the respect and credit he believed he earned, Max was ready to call him out in public loudly, and nothing was off limits. It didn't take long before Max linked up with the perfect partner in the storm, French Montana. Back then, French wasn't the chart-topping artist he is today. He was a raw street figure, known for his Cocaine City DVD series, gritty tapes that showed real Bronx life and everything happening around it. French already had tension with Jim Jones, tied to a shooting situation where Jim was rumored to have been spreading negativity about him. So when Max and French connected, it wasn't just music. It was a bond built from shared battles, almost like two soldiers realizing they were fighting the same enemy. They created a crew called Coke Wave, and it quickly turned into one of the most talked about and fearless movements in mixtape culture. Max knew the industry wasn't coming to rescue him. He didn't own his publishing, he didn't have a label behind him, and doors were closing everywhere. But he still had something nobody could take: his voice, his charisma, and a sound the streets genuinely rocked with. So Max did what someone with hustle in their DNA does when they're pushed into a corner. He went independent and started dropping his music straight to the people for free. He wanted the world to hear the songs that certain folks in the industry didn't want out. But Max wasn't just releasing tracks, he was throwing verbal shots, calling out Jim Jones and anyone standing with him, and he wasn't holding anything back. The first hit he launched came through a mixtape titled Public Domain 3, and it had the streets buzzing instantly. The mixtape cover said everything without Max having to open his mouth. He posed in a graveyard with tombstones labeled Millie, Jim Jones, and Vanilli Joel Santana, clowning them by comparing them to Milli Vanilli, the duo known for pretending to sing. Max was basically saying Jim and Joel were trying to ride the wave he created, but didn't have the real sauce to keep it going. He mocked them heavy, dropping tracks with titles like Lips I Rapping and spitting lines like, "I know them dudes need me, I was giving them the loots, but them dudes done blew it." Max was sending a message loud and clear. He felt they were nothing without his creativity. But Max didn't stop at music. He aimed at reputations and personal images, shaking the whole structure of what Jim had been building. One of the wildest moments in the whole feud came when Max released the track She Touched It in Miami. In the song, he claimed that Jim Jones's longtime girlfriend, Chrissy Lampkin, had been involved with him in ways that crossed serious lines without going into detail, and he rapped about it with a laughing tone that made the disrespect hit even harder.
Friend Charlie Wingate, aka Max V, a rapper, about the men's money. Then Wingate reaches out to this man, Calvin Leardon.
Max delivered the lines like he had zero fear, and he painted Jim as someone being joked about inside his own circle, and the streets ate it up. The buzz around that track spread fast, and the drama around it had everybody talking. Jim Jones, on the other hand, looked blindsided. He tried to brush the claims off, tried to deny everything, and even tried to downplay Max's role in his success, calling Max washed up and saying he never got off the shelf. Jim also insisted Max didn't write "We Fly High," even though the streets weren't buying that at all. People had already heard Max's voice on the early reference versions, so the crowd wasn't fooled. Jim's denials only made the rumors louder. People started side-eyeing Jim's real contribution to Dipset, wondering how much of the magic came from him and how much came from the talent around him. Max was moving like he wanted a full-on war, and he wasn't bluffing about anything. He even claimed that one day Jim Jones tried to trap him by boxing in his car in a parking lot. Max said he spotted the setup, hit the gas, smashed Jim's Bentley out of the way, and got a few punches in before speeding off. The story sounded wild, but Max was out here proudly showing off the dents in his own ride like badges of honor. French and a few others backed his story, and soon the whole situation started growing into one of those street legends people repeat like it's gospel. Then came November 2008, when Max and French chose to confront Jim face to face. They rolled into Manhattan with confidence, walked straight into a building where Jim was recording, and let it be known that things weren't smooth for Jones in the streets anymore. Max later claimed Jim saw what was happening and called the cops, which only made the drama louder and the disrespect sting deeper. Around that same time, members from both sides crossed paths in a Brooklyn club, and everything turned chaotic. A huge fight broke out, chairs flying, crews clashing, and police showing up with K9 units to break it up. It felt like a scene out of an action movie, but it was real life, and it showed just how deep the tension ran. By the time the dust settled, Max B hadn't just thrown jabs at Jim Jones, he had turned him into a walking punchline, someone people laughed about whenever Max's name came up. Max turned into a cult hero, one of those rare artists who didn't need a label's approval to feel stamped by the streets. Even though contracts were holding him back and he wasn't seeing the rewards he deserved, he still found a way to make himself a legend. He kept dropping music non-stop, flooding the blocks with tracks people still play today. But while the beef with Jim Jones kept spreading across neighborhoods and mixtape circles, something much heavier was waiting for Max on the other side.
Began the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn. Police are called there after a man is shot to death. The victim, David Taylor from Florida, was staying in room 227.
Behind all the chaos, Max B was preparing for the biggest fight of his life, a criminal trial that had the power to lock his entire wave away forever. On June 9th, 2009, Max walked into the Bergen County Courthouse like someone who believed his truth would win. He had supporters with him, cameras recording his every move, and that signature confident sway in his walk. His legal team was talking like they had things under control too. They said they tore apart the prosecution's main witness during cross-examination, Gina Conway, the same woman at the center of the entire situation. Gina had already turned herself in and testified against Max and his stepbrother Kelvin Leardam in exchange for a lighter sentence. Max's lawyer tried to paint her as someone acting out of emotion, claiming she was twisting stories just to save herself. But courtrooms don't work like the streets. You can't win off charisma, presence, or swagger. Once the jury came back with their decision, everything Max believed about loyalty, street principles, and even second chances collapsed instantly. Max B was found guilty on 9 out of 11 charges, including armed robbery, conspiracy, aggravated assault, and felony murder. The verdict hit like a punch nobody could dodge. The prosecution locked in on their version of the story and pushed it hard. They painted Max as the one who planned the entire setup from the shadows, even if he wasn't there when the gun went off. They claimed he was the person who laid out the plan, pushed Gina and Kelvin to follow through, and expected to sit back and scoop up the cash afterward. Everything in the courtroom came down to one person, Gina Conway. She cut a deal with the government, trading heavy charges for a lighter sentence. What started as murder charges for her got dropped to armed robbery and manslaughter once she agreed to cooperate, earning a recommended 18-year sentence. Max's defense team fought hard, saying Gina shaped the story to save herself. They even highlighted the irony in her testimony, because at one point, she said Max didn't know anything about a robbery at all, and that she only used Max B's name to convince her boyfriend Kelvin to go through with it.
Drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s.
Well, you know,
I made incredible. I made the hooks. I made the melodies.
Yeah.
I made the shit, dog. I'm the man.
The defense pushed the idea that Gina later pointed the finger at Max out of heartbreak and survival instincts, hoping the courts would look at her with mercy. But none of that swayed the jury. They didn't buy the idea that she was twisting the story. They sided with the prosecution's version. On September 3rd, 2009, Max B was hit with a 75-year sentence with parole eligibility in 2042. In one single moment, Max went from being a street-powered icon, someone the whole city buzzed about, to becoming an inmate facing decades away, a shift so heavy it froze the whole wave he built. While the streets were hurting over Max's situation, it looked like Jim Jones was feeling confident from a business angle. Jones moved like he had locked in the ultimate checkmate. Max was in prison, his voice couldn't hit the industry the same way, and Jim still held the publishing rights to all of Max's work. Every hook Max crafted, every melody he laid down, every piece of that wavy sound, any money coming from it went straight into Jim's pockets. Jim even teased Max publicly whenever he had the chance, throwing goofy nicknames around, brushing him off as irrelevant, and pushing the idea that Max was washed before he even had the chance to rise.
Just enough to get my room so I could ram it up, ram it up his. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab it. So when he came in the window, I punched him in his face.
In interviews, Jones acted like he had moved on completely, treating Max like old inventory, something he once used but had no plans of ever pulling back out. But things weren't as locked in as Jim believed. Even from behind bars, Max B wasn't finished, not even close. The love the streets had for him was too strong, and his name still carried serious weight. Max stayed active however he could, staying in contact with French Montana, DJs, and independent labels, keeping his energy alive in the culture from the inside. Then in May 2010, everything shifted. A major legal win came through and flipped the entire situation on its head. A judge ruled that Jim Jones no longer had any control over Max B's music career. With one court decision, the power dynamic changed completely. Max might have been locked away, but his voice and his legacy were no longer in someone else's hands. The judge ruled that Max had fully completed both contracts he signed with Jim back in 2005 and 2007. In simple terms, Max was free, at least on the business side. Those paper chains that once tied his art to someone else's pockets were gone. He was still inside, but that contract? Finished.
Right around that time, Max B gets found guilty on 9 of 11 counts, including felony murder. And he gets sentenced to, was it 75 years?
Yeah, 75.
That win opened the lane for Max to finally drop his long-anticipated album Vigilante Season in 2011. And if anybody still doubted how far Max's influence reached, the streets cleared that up fast. His wavy style, the melodic street bounce he helped pioneer, became the cheat code for a whole new era of artists. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing pieces of Max in someone's cadence, their harmonies, or the way they talked about waves, vibes, or moving free. His fingerprints were everywhere, even when he wasn't physically around. Then came the twist nobody expected. In 2016, after 7 years behind bars, Max's new legal team dropped a major bomb. They argued that Max's original lawyer didn't give him a fair fight. According to the claim, instead of building the strongest defense, the lawyer was focused on chasing a big payday, hoping to ride Max's music success if he beat the charges. This strategy fell under something called post-conviction relief, and shockingly, it worked. The judge actually vacated Max's original 75-year sentence, opening a brand new door for him. From there, Max took a plea deal, pleading guilty to aggravated manslaughter. That move slashed 55 years off his time, cutting it down to 20 years, then down again to 12. And since Max had already served several years by that point, the finish line was finally in sight. For the first time in a long time, freedom didn't feel like a fantasy. It felt close enough to touch. Max wasn't facing the rest of his life behind bars after all. His official release date was set for November 9th, 2025, and by that point, Max B wasn't just a rapper. He had turned into a full-blown myth. His influence stretched everywhere, from raw underground freestyles all the way to superstar albums with global reach. Even Kanye West stepped into the wave. In 2016, Kanye tried to name his album Waves, but the entire Wave community pushed back so hard that he had to publicly recognize Max as the source. Kanye even put Max's voice on the album afterward as a sign of respect. Artists like Drake and Wiz Khalifa openly said they pulled inspiration from him too.
You were sentenced to 75 years, but then last July you said you got reduced to 20 years. And then to 12 years.
And in one rare moment of honesty, even Jim Jones said Max B had the potential to be bigger than Drake if prison hadn't cut his rise short. That kind of respect spoke volumes, even coming from someone he'd feuded with for years. Now with 2025 getting closer, a strange question sits over everything. Are Max and Jim still enemies, or is the war finally over? Max has been speaking from prison with a completely different mindset. He said he's a new man now, a husband and a father of 4. That old anger didn't seem to be burning the same way anymore. He even hinted that he might be willing to let the past go, to finally put the whole situation to rest. But Jim Jones, he wasn't moving in the same direction. Even though he and French Montana rebuilt their friendship and dropped music together again in 2023, Jim made it clear Max was a different story. He said he didn't wish Max any harm, but he wasn't trying to sit down and get friendly either. The wave god is almost home, and the streets are watching closely to see what happens next. If you like this breakdown, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment letting me know what you want covered next.